Místico. Today, I wanted to talk about relationships and how they shake us up, how they teach us, and ultimately help us become more of who we are. I thought I was called to do this episode today in meditation, but before I get started, I wanted to give a heartfelt thank you for you taking the time out to listen to this podcast. I wanted to really get into this sacred mirrors on relationships and how they help us grow, even if they're not the forever soulmate relationship, true love, I think all human beings are all looking for that amazing, beautiful, deep connection that brings us closer to ourselves, to God, to the Creator, to each other, to Mother Earth. Being in relationship is such a beautiful, magnetic growth expansion. Today, I just wanted to discuss the attraction as mirrors, the relationships from a Kabbalistic perspective, and also soulmate versus soul teacher. And then I wanted to get into after the ending of the relationship and how to process that, and then creating the vessel for you to really be able to connect with that divine partner that is out there. I always speak from my heart, from my truth. I always speak from experience. I recently have parted ways from a 5-year relationship that was a great teacher. I'm going to use my personal examples to help you navigate your relationships, whether maybe you're realizing that maybe your connection with the current partner is not quite what you want, or maybe you're starting to date someone and you're right off the bat starting to see some red flags and you blow them off, or if you just need some awesome energy telling you that you did a great job, that you stood in your truth. And if you're listening to this and are looking for a new relationship, this also applies to you. So we're going to be talking about Kabbalistic view on relationships and what does it mean when we're attracted to someone. We automatically, I know for me, are they our soulmate? Is this my soulmate? Is this the one? I know I've been there. Or is it just a teacher coming in? And what do you do when love ends? But the lessons stay, right? If they're just a teacher, they're just a chapter in your story and they're not the whole story. Attraction is mirrors. I wanted to talk about how in Kabbalah, attraction isn't random, it's energetic. We attract people based on our internal frequency, not just where we are now, but also what our soul is trying to heal or elevate us into something new and better. And sometimes the attraction feels magnetic, electric. Your heart, you're just so excited. All you can do is think about the person. At the beginning, you're in that honeymoon phase where even when the red flags come up, you ignore them. That intensity often means they're not here for a lifetime, but for a lesson. The person becomes a mirror. They reflect parts of us that we need to see, our wounds, our patterns, our unmet needs, and maybe even our deepest fears. And it's not always romantic butterflies. Sometimes it's soul friction meant to create a spiritual fire. Think of it like they're a teacher dressed in a costume of a lover. So when we're attracting someone, I believe we come down here, I believe in reincarnation, but I believe that we have soul contracts, that we have come down here, we've made soul contracts with different people to teach us different things. And sometimes we mistake these connections with these people as, I found the love of my life. And I think primarily it has to do with our conditioning in society, the romantic Walt Disney and Cinderella and Sleeping Beauty, and that was just the ideal of love. But true love is a lot of work. Being in relationship requires a depth of work and really loving yourself and realizing that you've brought in this person to help you. If it just happens to be that you did find your soulmate and you have been with your soulmate and that person is just evolving along with you, that is such a beautiful treat, and you're very privileged to have that connection. But I think for most of us, we're just here having a physical experience in this place called Earth. A lot of the times, we have all our baggage, all our fears, all our drama. And a lot of the times, if you don't have a high sense of emotional intelligence, is what I like to call it, where you're really aware that we're just here playing teacher roles for each other. And if you could just really see it from that perspective, I think a lot of your relationships, just not intimate and love related, you can have a profound shift because we're all here just mirroring each other. So attraction is a mirror. So I think that's really important to always understand that. And for me personally, I've never been into, when I was very young, I will say in my 20s, I did have a lot of victim mentality. I was immature. I didn't have the experience. I didn't really have anybody around me to help me, to coach me, to see it. Now, in my later years, I completely take responsibility for my actions, for the situations and people and things that I attract in my life. And I'm very clear that they are lessons in my life. I'm coming from this perspective of taking responsibility where I am not an ego-based victim. I am open, vulnerable, and really want to look at my stuff. And I think one of the things that I'm really proud of myself, if I can just share, is that I've worked really hard to put myself into other people's shoes and be as empathetic as possible and to get out of my own ego and be as humble as possible. I think that is a level that I strive to be and exemplify in my life every day. And I'm really passionate about loving people unconditionally and accepting them for who they are. That's just my base of where I come from. So this Kabbalistic point of view, the Kabbalah is not a religion, it's mysticism, and it goes very deep and very profound. To give you a little background, when I was living in New York City, I would go to the Kabbalah Center, and I had some great mentors, and it was very profound. And then as life goes on, I got turned on to other tools and techniques, and I'm always trying different things because that's just my design. I love trying new things. But now that I'm currently parting ways with a soul brother who was a soul teacher in a romantic partnership, we have parted ways now. It's been 5 years, and that's a long time to be with someone. That's like half of a decade. There's a lot of experiences, a lot of beauty, and a lot of understanding. I'm coming to you with an open heart, with my reflections and how I've been processing, and if I can be of any assistance to you to let you know that you're perfect as you are and that you did everything that you did and that these are just lessons and that at the end of the day, we're all one. We're all interconnected in this mesh called the Akash, and we're all interconnected. So when you get out of the blame and victim, I think it just makes it a lot easier to process the grieving, the separation, and the understanding of what the lessons are. It's like when you take a test at school, right? You studied for that math test for weeks, and you didn't do that great at it, and you retake it, and then the second time you do a lot better, and then you keep improving. That's the same thing with relationships. Sometimes relationships aren't all this fluff and puff that we think that we see like in the romantic comedies. Relationships are a lot of work, and you don't have to be healed to be in a relationship, but the true test comes when you're with a person that is emotionally available and that wants to walk on the path with you. But if you're somebody that is with somebody that's emotionally avoidant and they're not ready to receive your love, then there's going to be a mix match of energy, and that's where your life lessons are going to come in. That's what I wanted to talk to you about that now. So the relationships is just think of it like a schoolroom, a class, a lab. And once you're in a relationship, it becomes what the Kabbalists call a tikkun, and that's called a correction. And it doesn't mean a punishment, it means an opportunity to repair, transform, and grow. That is what a tikkun is for all aspects of your life. But today we're focusing on relationships and what my understanding is and how I'm processing my tikkun. This is why I want to share this with you. My tikkun is the fear of being abandoned, right? My father died when I was 13. Then my second father died when I was in 10 years after. I've just had a lot of wounds, a lot of woundology of losing my father. And he didn't abandon me because he didn't purposefully decide to walk out. He passed away. But for me, that felt like an abandonment. So of course, in my correction, in my tikkun, this is for my example, I'm just using this as an example. As you're listening to me, reflect on your correction. What is your tikkun? And so it's my tikkun. And I was aware of my tikkun. I really was. I was very aware of my tikkun. But I also had another tikkun, which I was doing simultaneously, which had to do with self-worth, which I think I had two tikkuns in this particular relationship. One was the abandonment, and the other one was the self-worth, which is something that I've been working through my whole life. And of course, I've attracted men that just never stay around because I hadn't really gotten my self-worth, and I just kept attracting people that were aligned with my level of, let's just say, unprocessed emotions. And so now that I'm becoming wiser and more aware, and I have more experience and more tools and techniques, and I'm really diving deep, then it makes it a lot easier to eventually be really clear. We attract people who activate old stories from childhood, past lives, and even ancestral imprints. And the relationship becomes a sacred lab where these things rise to the surface. So ask yourself, what do I keep repeating? What emotions get activated? And where do I give away my power? Now, I've given away my power. I've been repeating this now for probably a couple decades. I've been repeating this. I've always grown from the others, but I guess my vessel is still not 100% empty to receive the new. I know it can get a little confusing if you've never really learned about the Kabbalah, but they say an empty in the vessel is the trick for expansion and miracles. And you pausing and sitting in reflection with your pain, with the emotions that you're currently navigating, instead of pushing them away, if you really harness them and come from a place of, what a gift, what a blessing, thank you, and just keep, while you're processing. I kept doing this while I was crying. I was really just realizing that something had ended that was so precious to me, where I had loved so deeply, where I really have stepped up to my inner worth and my capability and capacity as working with my divine feminine and stepping out of my masculine, because I've always been in my masculine of survival, and I can do this, and I got to take care of this, and I got to take care of that. But in this particular relationship, I was really vulnerable and walking into my femininity and really just being okay with being vulnerable and giving unconditional love, even though sometimes the person, they weren't ready to receive. And so that was one of the main aha moments that I've had. If you're like me, you probably have attracted an unavailable, critical, or avoidant partner, because that's what we do. And they keep looking for an anxious attachment, which feeds their ego. And that's all a different episode. In my personal experience, I attracted an emotionally unavailable man. And he was also an avoidant. He would deny that, but that's okay. And also remember that we all have our perceptions. We all have our ways of seeing things, and nobody's ever going to see it the way that you see it. I don't expect anybody to see it, but you can only walk your talk. And I'm in my body. I know what I'm feeling. I know what I'm processing. If somebody tells you that you're being emotional or they're lashing out at you and being critical, then obviously they're mirroring to you that they're not on the level of maturity and emotional intelligence as you might thought they were. So when you're processing these emotions and you keep choosing these energies, it's not just about them. It's the universe giving us the mirror to say, hey, are you ready to choose something different? And that is the key to having alchemy in your life, right? That's where the alchemy comes in. And I've been really focusing on wanting to become an alchemist and transforming this past relationship, which was very beautiful. There was a lot of great times, but doing the alchemy of understanding that we outgrew each other, our needs were getting met, and that it was time to move on, even though that was very painful. Be honest with myself and just realize that everything really is in divine order, and that nothing would be happening if it wasn't, because the universe is constantly rearranging itself to bring you magic and beauty and lessons. And then the more we elevate and the more we're empowered and the more that we are in trust and surrender and pause and work with the emotions, that's when the really great miracles and the expansion starts to happen. And I literally just channeled that piece. So I hope you received it. And I just wanted to say and take a pause here to all those people that are taking the time to listen. Thank you so much. If you're going through a heartbreak or just recently ended a relationship, I know, I feel you. And that's why I really feel called to do this episode today, because I feel that a lot of the times it's hard to get through the emotional pain, but the more you sit with it, the faster it gets worked through you. And then another thing that I wanted to talk about too is that in the processing, there's a lot of things that you can do to do it honorably without getting into hate bashing and bad mouthing the person. And sometimes it can get really ugly in divorces. People can start lashing out, and then all of a sudden the person that you loved for many years becomes the evil villain in your story. And these are just our stories. We are the directors. We are the actors. We are the script writers. What is your script? What are you directing? What are you choosing? Are you choosing to be a victim, or are you choosing to be empowered and say, yeah, I love this person. I'm totally heartbroken. It sucks. The person decided to go in another direction with another person and not do their work. But you know what? That's okay. Let them. And that also brings me back to the let them theory by Mel Robbins. You don't want to do the work? Go be with someone else. Go let them. If you haven't heard about the let them theory, I highly recommend the book or the audio. And also, I wanted to get back to this about accepting and honoring who you were in the moment with that person and not beating yourself up. It's really easy for us to beat ourselves up and say, oh, I was so stupid and I can't believe that I didn't see this coming and I didn't know this and I didn't know that. I'm not going to get into the specifics of my situation, but the only thing that I'm really clear on is that man I was with was not willing and open, and he cannot handle all my unconditional love because of his wounds, because of his path. If he's hearing this, he's going to disagree, and that's okay. It's okay if you get pushback, but if you do the parting ways honorably, you get a journal and you journal dump all the negative stuff that you want to say. But one thing that I've learned throughout my life is that speaking negatively of other people, even if you're venting, energetically does not feel good. So if you do need to vent, or you need to release and have an anger release session where you're like, this, I'm not going to say the bad words, but when you just need to get it out, do it with a sacred space. Burn some incense, get a smudge stick, protect yourself with the white light. Just send an intention and say, this is just for my own personal benefit, that I really feel that I need to do this release work and I need to get all this energy off my chest. And I'm angry right now, but deep down, I'm going to honor our connection with respect and love and realize that it was a gift, and that this gift is what's going to catapult me into my new relationship that's going to look very differently. Be impeccable with your word. Be impeccable, because what happens is that we're sending that energetic intention. Those are spells that you're putting out into the universe. These are spells, right? If you're going to use your words, do it in a way where You protect yourself when you need to vent, and then when you need to step up to the game and take responsibility as a master that you are and not a victim, then you're setting those intentions out there. I think that's really important because with me, I have a very powerful voice and sometimes I forget. And I just wanted to do everything with a clean integrity and not bad mouth and not release. I did get a mentor, coach, a psychologist to help me through this. And so that's a safe container for me to vent, release, and to just purge a lot of wounds that I created, that this was a contract, a soul contract. So just remember, you created this with this person, whether you like to hear that or not. Let's talk about, this is a fun part. I wanted to talk about soulmate versus soul teacher. Let's break this down into simple terms. We have our soul teachers that come in to activate your cocoon. And those are the partners that are not available. They're critical, they're avoidant, they're scared, they've got their woundology, they're not ready. They say they're ready, but they're not ready. Then your soulmate comes in to walk beside you once you've made enough space to receive. And before I move further, they're both going to feel intense, they're both going to feel faded, but the outcome is going to be different. The soul teacher might leave you feeling broken so you can become whole, and then your soulmate will see your wholeness and want to build from there on and continue that path with you. So you don't fail if someone isn't your forever. You're just evolving. What I wanted to really dive deep into this particular area is that it's really important to understand that you don't have to have it all figured out. You don't have to be perfect. You're never going to be perfect, and you're not always going to have it figured out. But each relationship is going to take you closer to that optimal vision of the relationship that you want. It's your job to do your work, to be independent, to love yourself, and for you to have a very good whole base with yourself, so that if you are presented with those uncomfortable moments, you have the emotional intelligence to say, hey, you know what? I've already told this person X amount of times that I really want to be in a committed relationship, and they keep pushing me away. And it's been 5 years, and you're thinking, you know what? This person's never going to commit. That's when you have to have self-love for yourself. Yes, you can love them unconditionally, but you also have to value yourself and really realize that, hey, no, this is not what I'm looking for. This is not the vision of the relationship that I'm looking for. And you need to have almost like a sit down with yourself and say, is this person really bringing me joy? Is this the type of connection that I want in my life? Or is it the imagination of the person? Is it the concept that I had of this person? I've always loved deeply and very unconditionally. So I always want to see the good in the person. Sometimes I'm not seeing it for what it is. If you're like me, it's okay. We're going to figure this out together. It's really important for you to be clear with yourself. If somebody doesn't want to be with you and they've already moved on with somebody else, that's really all the closure that you need. And now you got to start working on your self path and realize that nothing happens randomly. So everything's in divine order. If the universe is pulling this person out of your life because they met someone else, it means that something else is coming in for you that's more aligned with your vision. Then you need to just look at those two people and say, what a gift. I bless you. Thank you. What a gift. I love you. Bless you. It feels a lot better when you are in that vibration versus this jerk and this, that. And then right there, that's pulling you back to ego. You don't want to do that. You want to take responsibility and be like an alchemist, really use alchemy. Walk into the pain, pause, sit there, pain, cry. It's been 2 months of just major, really going really deep because I thought, for me personally, I just thought, you know what, let me just rip off the Band-Aid. Let me just do it now. A lot of times we try to avoid, we try by even meeting someone else right away. That's just another lesson. I personally think you should take some time, especially if you've been in a 5-year relationship. You probably need some time to work on yourself. There is no time. limit, but I know with me, I'm very pragmatic. And once I figure things out, I can move on because I'm just looking at it from a very emotionally intelligent perspective. And also getting out of the past and the future, that's going to help you too. If you're too much in the past regretting, then you need to use tools, or I suggest using tools like EFT, which is called tapping, or doing a lot of exercise or breath work, and really work on all your 5 emotional levels. And I do have some great meditations on my YouTube channel. And I also have a gratitude sacred codes meditation, which I feel that if you're in gratitude is very powerful tool to transmute and alchemize pain, suffering, anything else that is happening to you as you're releasing the energetic ties with this other person. And another thing is step into your power. Really call yourself in and say, I am worthy of love. I am worthy of love. And understand that if that person's moved on, then that's okay too. You're going to be, as you're working through the cocoon, when you're processing and you're letting go and you're making peace with the fact that it's over, then according to the Kabbalah, you're creating a new vessel. So you're emptying, look at it this way. You have a cup of water that you kept pouring water into it, but the glass was full. That light and that water wasn't getting into that vessel, that other person's vessel. They weren't able to receive your light and love. And then now you're like, oh my gosh, I got to work with my vessel now. I got to empty all this out so I could bring in all the new. And what you want to do is you want to pause. And you need to understand that this means emotional detoxing, releasing the fantasy, and honoring the real, messy, beautiful truth of whatever your circumstance was, and being in gratitude. The Kabbalah teaches that the light can only enter a vessel that is empty of ego, attachment, and fear. That's why I keep going back to this gratitude, blessings. In the Kabbalah, they say, what a gift, what a gift. I was listening to David Guillaume. I follow him. I just want to send out a little shout out to him if you don't know who he is. He's an incredible man who's dedicated his path to being of service, and he just has such a great way of shining the light for others. And he would always say that what a gift, right? And he lost like $1 million. I was watching an interview that he did, and he lost $1 million in some fraud banking transaction. He just went into this, what a gift for the lesson, what a gift. And then he just did his processing, sat with the creator, I'm sure surrendered, welcomed in all that anxiety and anger and everything that would go on with your emotions if you lost $1 million+ dollars. And then 3 months later, his company turned around. That's the same thing that can happen with relationships. I'm making an intention that I decree here and now that I am open and ready for a new, optimal, evolved relationship with someone who's emotionally available. It's really important too for you to set your intentions clearly. Something that I did for fun is that I created a journal that was about the new person. What would that person look like, and all of the characteristics and the feeling and the vibration. And not so much from a superficial, like, oh, he's got to have this and that perspective, which it is in there as well. I did put like what my type is, what I like, things like that. But I also put, what would it feel like to hear the words, I love you, I've got your back, we're in this together. Everything that I didn't hear in the past. So it's really important too, to, when you're journaling, you're speaking your truth, that you are getting really clear with yourself, and also creating a connection with God, your angels, your higher self, that perfected part of yourself, and really focus on co-creating that new connection in a wonderful, committed relationship. And it can also be a work relationship, but like I said, we're just focusing on love relationships today. So another thing I did was an anger journal, which was like, okay, all the negative stuff, I blessed it, I put it in the light, and then I burned it, and I did cord cutting, and it was very profound. And I did that for a couple days, where I just said, okay, I'm going to give everything back to my family lineage. I'm going to give everything back to this person. I'm going to cut everything with love. with a lot of love, though. There's always love and ingratitude to things that I do, especially if I'm parting ways with somebody that I've been with for 5 years. I'm one of these people, I don't believe that if you've been with somebody for so long, that because something ends and all of a sudden you get to go off and start talking trash and shit with other people, and then that just lowers your vibration. And I've always had a very high emotional integrity where that is concerned. I try not to do that. And it just feels a lot better when you can be in gratitude for the lessons and get out of your victim mentality. I can't emphasize that enough. It's so important. But I spoke out loud, and your needs are also important, whether you need to release it from, hey, the anger's coming out, so that's very valid. Or another thing, like for instance, that I did today, now that I'm getting closer and closer to just making my peace and it's not triggering me, I'm not feeling emotional, I can actually listen to a record or a song and I'm not freaking out, or I can see things that remind me of the person and I'm like completely in perfect alignment with myself because I can see the bigger picture. And I hope that if you're going through a breakup, that you can also access that in yourself and access that wisdom. It does take time, but once you get there, eventually you will get there. And it just feels so much better when you can be in appreciation and love. And so your soulmate doesn't arrive because you're perfect, right? Just because you do all the work, like I said earlier, you're going to attract somebody new that can be your soulmate, and you're still going to be walking through a different series of lessons. But guess what? You're going to be able to do that magic and alchemy with that person that's going to be not just a chapter in your life, but that person's going to be your story. How wonderful is that? You get to look forward to that connection, to that beauty, to that alchemy. And it's in you choosing to be your own alchemist, is to walk in the pain, walk in the sorrow, feel it, process it, knowing at the end that this other connection's going to come into you. I've heard of stories of people meeting people in very auspicious and just very magical ways soon after ending a relationship. And the only time that really truly happens is when you've done your work. Now, if you're just there is the other part of that where people will go serial relationship where they'll just go and connect with someone because they don't want to do the work. Then that's a totally different situation. And that's where the avoidance come in, where they'll be dismissive, controlling. They'll make it seem like it's all you with the critique of who you are, and then them moving on is a different type because that's not really doing any soul alchemy. That's just, hey, I'm repeating the pattern. That's important to keep that in the back of your head. And it happens. I've dated people and then I didn't want to deal with the pain, so I met someone right away. I'm guilty of that. But I'm older and more aligned with a higher purpose, so I'm not interested in that anymore. But I've been there and there's no judgment. Releasing and honoring that it can be messy is important. So I like to keep these not too long, but I also wanted to let you know as a closing reflection of everything that we talked about, that if you are in the pain of a breakup right now, remember, this is not your ending. This is your becoming. You're becoming an alchemist. You're releasing. It's like a snake. You're releasing all these old skins. And please remember, you're not being punished. These are just lessons, as the Kabbalah call them, tikkun. And you're being prepared. Isn't that beautiful? I love that. I will just share one last thing. I was in contemplation meditation, and I did hear the voice of God. I did feel this omnipresent energy telling me it really is all in divine order. Just trust the process. I feel like once I heard that, I have so much faith that it was time to let this old connection go. There's much love and respect, but I'm definitely ready for something new. If you're like me, you are ready to embark into something beautiful. And the universe doesn't take away love to harm you. It removes what blocks your capacity to receive divine love. And remember, you are already worthy of sacred partnership. You are already worthy of sacred partnership. And in this last moment, I just want to do this one affirmation and close your eyes and repeat after me. I honor the lessons. I release what's not aligned. I open my heart to love, to a love that uplifts my soul. I honor the lessons. I release what's not aligned, and I open my heart to love that uplifts my soul. If today's episode resonated with you, share it with a friend and reach out to my website if you want to get a reading. Readings can come in really helpful, and especially if you're not sure of what's going on with the connection, because then I can go into seeing if there were any soul contracts, or we can contact the Akashic Records, and we can just get a closer look spiritually at as to what the connection is. And also, I have a new class coming up. It's called Reawaken Your Essence for women after they're in their 40s that are experiencing perimenopause. And it's about how to reawaken yourself and realize that this is not the end. So I'm really excited about the things that I'm working on. And please share any comments. Write to me on social media. I always love hearing from everybody and sending you much love.